tell me whatever story you'd like to tell.
Okay.
Can you tell me when you went to Iceland and about skiing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. From Iceland to Scotland to England, and from England to Ireland, back to Scotland, and then to Wales.
Mm-hmm.
From Wales, from there, I went to France. Well, I didn't go across with the troops. I was there. Some of us had to pack ships, keep them supplied. For about 3 days, we packed ships, 24 hours a day, until they got about 10 miles in.
Mm-hmm.
Then I went up to Dieppe, went up to Seine, to Rouen, got off, met them at Compiègne, and the fun started there. I spent my first night in Europe in Napoleon's big castle. He had two. That was in Compiègne, about 5 miles up here. He had a tunnel from this one to that one. He had two. And if they defeated him here, he'd go up there and fight them from there. And he had a big old, I called it just a square hole about 30 feet deep, and you look off down in there, big old bones where he'd throw his prisoners in there.
Napoleon.
Mm-hmm. Had a fireplace as big as that bed. Put logs in that big around, but it didn't heat anything. Then them old stone castles, you couldn't heat them.
Mm. I live in one now.
So I was kind of glad to get out of that thing.
Yeah.
That castle. The only other castle I was in was Castle Row in Ireland. I spent about almost 3 months in that one.
What were you doing
working
there?
Out of that one.
What were you doing there?
Oh, the British and the Northern Ireland Catholics were fighting, so they put us in the middle to stop them.
Oh.
So we stopped it. We told them stop or we'd whip both of them. They knew we could, so they did.
Yeah.
And when they sent us to Iceland, and we took over Iceland. Icelanders didn't like us because they were getting rich off of oil, taking it out and dumping it on submarines. See, so we went up there and stopped that, and to take over Iceland.
Okay, and that's where you learned how to ski?
Mm-hmm. So then. While I was in Iceland, of course, they put me up on the glacier. And Iceland would have these little roads just long enough, wide enough for one car. And they'd have cutouts. And because up there, my nose itches, Jack Frost here get about that high. Up there it'd get this high, like this. You couldn't get off the road.
Really?
And if you seen a car coming, you try to beat him to the cutout. And then when he got by, you went on about your business. We was about 12 miles from Akureyri. That's the northern port of Iceland. But when we got up on the glacier, we could see Greenland.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was only 24 miles between Iceland and Greenland. And we was up on these glaciers, we could see way into Greenland.
Mm-hmm.
Ice, snow. I tell them now, I don't want to see no snow.
Enough.
I had enough of it when I was over there.
Uh-huh.
It's pretty falling, but now up there it didn't snow in inches, it snowed in feet. And sometimes we dig in, get us a place to sleep out of the snow. Because the wind, are you doing it? They would, the wind would blow and it'd pile snow upon you. You had to dig every night. You had to dig your snow hole to get in, and then block it up all but about that much, because if you sealed it up, your body temperature would glaze it and you'd smother. See?
Oh.
So we slept in snow holes.
Not even in a tent.
We didn't have a tent. We didn't have anything. Just all we had was clothing that was on us. Now, don't you know we smell good? Anyway, we stayed up there, I think, something like 8 or 9 months to get our training, and we finally got. They figured we got enough to where they could use us. What they were going to do is put us in a glider and get up high, way high, and then get us started and cut us loose and let us glide over there. See. And then when we reached northern Norway, if they had invaded, but thankfully they didn't, that we were to knock out the big coastal guns. There's 139 of us, and we had TNT, about 10 blocks of TNT on us, and then we had automatic weapons, 45, and we were to put a block of TNT in those breeches on those guns, and so they wouldn't work, see.
Oh, okay.
But in the meantime, had a German bullet hit me, they would have never found nothing but this little woody spot with that 10 pounds of TNT. I remember one time they pulled us back, and I was in charge of getting a firing range. I had a bunch of men that I were in charge of, and so we had a huge tree. It must have been 5 feet in diameter. It was a big one. And down below here was an old Frenchman's house, his little farm. So the captain told me, he said, "I want that stump up." I said, "Yes, sir." Well, we had found a place where they stored these. The Germans had stored these TNT blocks, pound blocks. So I told boys, I said, go get me about 7 pounds of it. 7 pounds of TNT? I said, yeah. Well, they dug under the roots and everything, put it on there, and it just blew out a bunch of dust. And the captain come back, and he said it right. "I want that damn tree. I want that damn tree out of here now. I told you to get it up." "Yes, sir." So I told one of the boys, I said, "You heard what the man said?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "You go back over there to that pillbox and you get me 37, or don't tell me you go put 37 pounds under that thing." I said, "Well, you heard what he said." "Yes, sir." They packed that stuff on there, and we about 200 yards from it, we got behind a big tree. And I had this little German boy that was my interpreter. He spoke German. I could speak some, but not enough. Anyway, when we set it off, I was behind a tree, I guess 4 foot in diameter, and had him. He was a good little boy, I was sure, but I lost him because I kept pulling him back. You're going to get your head blowed off, boy." No. And sure enough, it's a piece about, say, 3 foot long and about 2 or 3 inches, looked like a helicopter blade, and it hit him. And if you had to take a scalpel and taken the top of his skull off, it couldn't have done any better. And just to see his brain still working, it was awful. And I loved the little old boy, but it took me probably 2 or 3 weeks to get over that. But then the captain, he come back there, and we went out and looked to see what it had done. We'd hit that 37 pounds of TNT, blowed a hole big enough you could park one of them 6-bys down in it. Oh, he jumped up and ran it, raving. In the meantime, a chunk of it went up in there and come down on this Frenchman's house, destroyed the first story. It was a 2 or 3 story house. first thing I had to do is go back and get some timber and everything and do that, have that done. I had all kind of problems. What, he says, what in the hell did you do, boy? I said, you said blow it up. Yeah, but I didn't mean for you to blow up the whole damn range. You know, he was talking Army talk. I said, well, so I had to go get a bulldozer and fill in that. You know, I was having all kind of problems. And that Frenchman, I don't know what he was saying, but it wasn't good.
No, it wasn't.
They were about ready to hang me. I finally got it fixed up, though. But anytime we worked on something like that, they'd pull us back because we was a support unit. You had about, say, 20 miles of a front line, and you might have 5 or 6 regimental units, which are about 3,000 men apiece, and had them scattered out. And when the Germans would break through, then we'd have to fill in the blank, you see. And old Montgomery was on our left, and Patton, he hated Montgomery. He just couldn't stand him. Monty thought he ought to be in charge when they put Patton in charge, so that they had enmity between them, see.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd stop and have their tea. Patton said, I can't imagine somebody fighting a damn war and them sitting around drinking tea. And we'd have to stop, see, to keep from getting a big wide gap between us. And then that's when they'd break through, see. So they kept us running our legs off from one place to another. Anyway, we had to wait on Monty, and he'd find. And now the British were good fighters, but they had to stop and have that tea. And Patton, boy, he was just raising Cain. Then we got, I guess, about maybe 2, 3, or 4 days after that, Patton got killed. He was crossing Audubon,
Mm-hmm.
and a truck hit him and killed him. Well, when we were in Iceland, we lost Roosevelt. I thought, well, we've lost the war, but the other guy, he stepped up and took Roosevelt's place and actually done a better job. Now we done lost Patton, so I think Omar Bradley come up and took his place,
Mm-hmm.
and we finished the war. It took us, maybe a year after that before we got through with the war, going from place to place. I don't know how many times I crossed the Rhine and they'd push us back. We had to cross again. They'd blow up our pontoons and we'd have to do it all over again. So the Germans had a good army,
Mm-hmm.
and the French, though I think the French had as good or better army, but they were wise. They surrendered and saved Paris, you see.
Okay.
They didn't tear up Paris, so they saved Paris. That was good. But I remember one time when we got to Metz. Metz was there's a kind of a plateau, and then there was a low spot, and Metz was down there, and I could look at Metz when we went in, and there was not a house that was complete. It would either had a bomb or something to hit it, except as I said before, these cathedrals. Nobody seemed to touch a cathedral. They all had respect for it. But they had some beautiful cathedrals. I'd go through them, and look at them. But I spent a lot of my time in haystacks, under houses, behind tombstones,
High,
Yeah.
staying away and
Yeah.
hidden?
Yeah. And at night, sometimes we'd have to pile up leaves and things in the woods to keep warm, things like that. If the people back here knew what a soldier had to go through, there'd be no more wars. It was awful.
So you were sleeping without a tent still most of the time?
Yeah.
Really? Just out on the ground?
Huh?
Just sleeping out on the ground.
Oh yeah, sleeping on the ground.
Wow.
See, rain or shine, sleet or snow, you was out there in the elements. So we, and that's. But when the war was over, we stopped them at the Meuse River, up next to Belgium, and we beat them there, and we tore up the bridges. It was a mountain valley, you know, and just little one road around the mountain, and when we blew up the bridges, then we set up our artillery, and when they come around, we knocked out 2 or 3 of the tanks in the front, and then 2 or 3 way back in the back. Well, we had them, and it was nothing but a turkey shoot then, so
Really?
So we destroyed the last push. And if we hadn't, I think the Germans would have got across that. They would have encircled us, you see. I don't know how long we could have stood then, because they had put everything they had together to make that one final push.
Mm.
So.
What unit were you in?
Hmm.
What unit were you in?
I was in the 118th Infantry.
Okay.
I was in the infantry division.
So what was your job every day?
I was Army Field, and I was an S2 Army Field Intelligence.
Okay. What does that mean?
That means if the colonel, nightfall come, and he wanted to know what he's facing the next morning, there was just only 5 of us. You don't take over one with you when you go back behind enemy lines. And so we'd have to scout them out at night and advise. You don't tell the colonel what to do. You advise him, and we give him a picture of what we saw.
So you were crossing enemy lines.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Huh?
How does that work?
Well, when we tell him what we saw, and we suggested to, I say you don't tell the colonel, you suggest that he will go in with about 50 men over here just blowing up everything, and you take the 150 and circle around and get behind them, and we'd squeeze them out.
So how would you cross the enemy line without being seen? How did you cross enemy lines without being seen?
At night.
Yeah.
Well, when we went out at night, we took a raincoat, a flashlight, and a compass. And people say, well, did it rain? I said, no, hardly ever rained at night when we go out. And say, well, but you had to use your compass because you hadn't been there before. You didn't know where you go out there and turn around twice and you get lost. So we'd have to get down on the ground under there with that flash and get our compass and get our bearings. And then we could tell where we were. And about just before daylight, then you would come back to your unit, and you had a code word to get back in.
Mm.
Sometimes the code word didn't get to the guards, and they'd make us stand there for about an hour before we could get in. And I felt like taking that Thompson sub and just spraying. But then that didn't happen to about once or twice. And the colonel, we complained to the colonel, and he put a stop to that.
Mm.
But if you didn't know the code word, you wasn't getting in. Well, that was natural. Because the Germans could speak English, we could speak some German.
Yeah. So you told me one time, last time I saw you, that you had to draw enemy fire sometimes. Do you remember that?
Oh, well, yeah. Sometimes if we couldn't find anything, we'd take about a hand grenade or two and that Thompson and throw the hand grenade, and of course they'd be ducking for cover and you're spraying. And then you take off this way and that way. You didn't go this way because when they finally settled down and got behind the guns, everything gonna go this way. So we was over there laughing at him, you know, 'cause we were way back over here. Carl Risty, he was a big old Swede boy. He's an old farm boy like me, mean, tough, and you know. And I selected him every time, Carl. And Carl died last year, and I never did get to see him. I always wanted to go to see Carl. Because he saved my life many times, and I saved his many times, like, probably. But that's war.
Yeah. Didn't you live with a German family for a little while?
Yeah. When we'd be behind the lines, you know, sometime, we'd move out, like a house like this, we'd move the people out, and we'd take over for maybe a week at a time. If there's a lull in the fighting or something.
Okay.
And because we were behind the lines, see. And then you had to, these people behind the lines, we pray sometime, Lord, put us back on the front lines, because you got all these hundreds and thousands of people without homes, without food, without water, and we still had to keep the front lines. Ammunition. You had ammunition, gasoline, medical supplies, and first we had certain ones we had priority. See, so we had to keep these guns, and you had to go all the way back now to La Havre to get them on roads that was just tore up with automatic bombs and so forth, and you had to go down like this. We call that the Red Ball Express.
Yeah. Why?
I only made that trip once or twice, because we had to stay busy filling up holes, fixing water lines, trying to get power in and things like that. See, you got to, once you displace these people, you got to take care of them. See.
Okay.
You can't just leave them.
Mm-hmm.
So what you do, you pick out you think is the smartest ones and get them to started to work.
Okay.
And they actually took care of the rest of them. See, once you could get a contingent of them to get to work in there, to move and stuff, and putting up shelters, in just any kind of shelter to get them out of the weather. Then we let the Germans take care of them, because we're going to be moving on sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't there a German who came here to visit you many years later?
Yeah. I went to church one night, and to begin with, this lady that I took over her house, and she told me, she said, I only have what I have is my little bit of garden here behind me. He says, I don't have anything else, no money, no nothing. And said, I've lost one son on the Russian front, and my husband's up there now, prisoner. And she says, please don't let them destroy my garden. Well, I'd keep them out of the garden, and next day she'd bring me a little bowl or something, you know. How in the world you get something to eat and we don't? I said, keep your jackrabbits out of her garden. And she told me later, Theo, he was growing up. I remember one night though, I was laying there and I was thinking about my girlfriend back home, and the moon was shining in, you know, and I saw on the windowsill, we didn't have no screens or nothing, I seen these fingers come up on it. I just slid off on the side of the bed. You know, I knocked him plumb out in the street. We didn't have no sidewalk, but he hit the ground more, and I jumped up and he was taking off. I looked for, I don't know how long, somebody had two black eyes. I know he had two. But she told me, Theo, he came to see me. Well, he started up in Tennessee somewhere, all those that had been in their house going to Florida. And he told me, and she would write to me after I come back. She wrote me a lot of letters. and she would say that most of them wasn't as kind to me as you were. That she would just tell me how much she loved me. She almost adopted me while I was there. We were both Christians, see, and she could speak pretty good English.
Mm-hmm.
But then Theo came, and they told me I come to church that night, and they said, there's a fellow back there wants to speak to you. He kind of talks like a foreigner. And I thought, well, now who could that be? So I went back there. Now Theo's done grown boy now, and was married. And I walked in and I saw Theo. Boy, we run together. So I brought him home, and we sat there on the couch, I guess, till about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And then Nita and I carried him up up on North Bank to the motel, and that's the last time I seen Theo.
So
But-
he was that lady's son when you lived in their house in Germany?
Huh?
He was that lady's son when you lived there in Germany?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
He was a big wheel.
but he wanted Nita and I to come over there.
Oh, okay.
But after I had seen what was there when I left, I can imagine what was still there, and I didn't care about going back.
Mm-hmm.
See,
So did you do the same thing in all the different countries? They moved you around because the front was
yeah,
moving?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my job. But
So you were always on the front lines or behind the enemy lines?
behind the enemy line.
Okay.
No, we was on the front line. I mean, behind the front lines.
Oh, okay.
We were support unit.
Okay.
We wasn't in a division. We were just a support unit of contingent of 3,000 men here, maybe 6 or 7 on that 20-mile line. See,
Mm-hmm.
and our job was to move from here to there. And when it's an emergency and you got to move 5 miles, you got to run most of the way to get there. So it wore us out.
So you did a lot of traveling on foot?
Yeah, on foot. Yeah. I mean, one night
Okay.
that I was pulling in, we was coming into this place where there's trucks parked everywhere, like this, and we was going in between them, and I heard somebody say, "Hey, Martin!" I looked around, I didn't see nobody. "Hey, Martin!" I looked, still didn't see nobody. "Hey, Martin, you SOB!" And I seen one of them flaps on there do that. I just stuck my bayonet on there when I flipped back. Old Shorty Sutherland that I ran around with before I went in the Army. And I saw him. I always wondered what happened to Shorty. And I was working with Duke, and I saw him sitting on the porch, and I walked by him, walked by, and I turned around and walked back. "Shorty!" I recognized it. But of course we were 2 or 3 or 4 years older then,
Mm-hmm.
But he had married and moved over there next to Appleton Mill.
Oh.
I never did see Shorty again, though. I don't know what happened to him. I know he's dead by now.
Mm-hmm.
See it again, tell about the boat rides over there and back.
Yeah, you had to cross the ocean, right?
Huh?
Did you have to cross the ocean on a big ship? Did you have to cross the ocean on a big ship?
I crossed the ocean on the Batory. It was a luxury liner that the British had captured from the Polish, the Germans in Poland, and it held about, I guess. Well, most of our outfit was on that big luxury liner. And one morning we was out in the North Atlantic, and that North Atlantic, when these storms play out up there, man, you in your ship, you look around, you don't see anything, and then the next thing, you see all of them ships. Well, they torpedoed a Red Cross ship, and the Germans would torpedo something like a Red Cross ship because they knew we'd come to their rescue.
Oh.
See, but when it had 500 nurses on that ship, and when they torpedoed it, everything scattered. We knew what they were doing. They were going they were ganged up, and if we had to come in there to rescue them, they'd sank several other ships. See, we knew that, or they did. I was watching it, and but I saw that ship go down with all those 500 nurses on it. That was sad. And one morning we were traveling.
Hey. Hey.
Hey.
She's doing a video, Daniel. Tell about the war.
And there was a reconnaissance plane. A reconnaissance plane come down about that high off the water, right down through the middle of this. And we had 48 guns on our ship. And I looked, and every gun, everywhere, just guns pointing, and nobody fired a shot. And of course, he had to go through these battle wagons and cruisers up front and destroyers. Well, if he had stayed down, you can only depress those big guns so far. You can raise them, but you can't depress them. And what he done, he made the mistake of doing this. And actually, I was sitting there watching all those bullets, and I was seeing bullets hitting one another. There was that many. And there wasn't a piece of him 3 foot square that hit the ground. They just tore that plane all to pieces.
Mm.
And one time in Iceland, when they had the Germans would send reconnaissance planes over early one morning. We called them Wake Up Charlie. They brought in 2 P-38s and got up, let them get up pretty high. Now, those things could sure enough go when you're down, you know. We never did see any more of Wake Up Charlie. After that morning. They got him.
Wow.
But then, after we come into Greenock on northern Norway, I was sitting down hanging over the bow, and I looked down there, and a little old submarine about long as from here to that wall come up there, and I jumped back. I just imagined it was an enemy submarine, but the Atlantic Fleet was in there. I mean, aircraft carriers, battle wagons, cruisers, destroyers, and it's a big harbor, and Greenwich here and Gorick on that side, 2 towns. So we pulled into Gorick. I think it was Gorick. I said Greenwich, Gorick. And we got off and got on a train and went from there to southern England.
Mm-hmm.
That's before we went over. And but most of the time we had to stand up. Their trains, they'll have a walkway down the side. They do over there, and then they have these booths. And sometimes those Englishmen traveling on them, they knew we was tired. Sometimes we'd lay down in the floor because you're going to be traveling a day or two to go all the way. And they'd invite us in and let us sit with them and then drink tea and eat cookies. But it was a long journey.
How many years were you there?
I was fortunate to come out of it. Never been lucky in my life, but I've been most fortunate.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my old buddies are still over there, see. And in my unit, we were all together. We stayed together, see. So we were like families. Worked together, eat together, fought together, and it was just like a family. And I wonder, after I got home, I've wondered many times whatever happened to all those boys. But I reckon we were so glad to get out that we just scattered like a bunch of birds.
Mm. Yeah. Get away as fast as you can.
Yeah.
Did you see any concentration camps when you were there? Did you see the concentration camp when you were there?
Oh yeah. Well, we were. I don't remember just which one it was, but we were the first unit there to rescue them. And that was the awfulest sight I'd ever seen. What they would do, they would take a bulldozer and bulldoze about a 8 to 10 inch foot trench about 102 feet long, and they take the bones and everything, throw in there, and the trains, they had train station there, and there was car boxes there, and I could pick up somebody and weigh as much as Johnny. He wouldn't weigh over 40 or 50 pounds. It seemed like it. And stink, oh, I never smelled such. And I'd ask him, where to? If he could say Slovakia, I'd put him on a train going Czechoslovakia. But we rescued a good many of them, but then we made the Germans come in there and clean out those ovens and put all those bones and those and a lot of them had starved to death and they hadn't got them in the oven yet. So, and they would take them, they'd take them and just throw them in there like a bunch of rag dolls, and fill it back over.
So the people who were left, you'd have to carry them to get them on a train to try to get them
Had
back
to pick
home.
them up, carry them because they couldn't walk. Their eyes would be sunk back in their head. A man weighing, say, 220 or 30 pounds, he probably wouldn't weigh 60 or 70, 80 pounds. Just dried, just bones and skin, that's all. I don't know how they're still alive. And the barracks, in the barracks, what they made, their bed, like that bed Terry's sitting on there, they used barbed wire. Yeah.
They had to sleep on
They had to
barbed
sleep
wire?
on barbed wire. Yeah. Yeah. It was terrible. Awful. It's even animals don't treat their own like that.
No.
So
you've been through a lot of different families in your lifetime. I'm glad you have your family with you now, because you
Yeah.
told me you lost your family when you were 4 or 5, and then
I
you.
lost my first family.
Yeah.
I lost every one of them until they got grown. I didn't even see them. You know, Margaret and Lucia and Nan and them.
So they were grown.
No, I lost my brother and sister and my dad and mom first, because I was put in another home with older people.
So they didn't take Lib and Dick with you. They
Huh.
they didn't take Lib and Dick with you. They just put you by yourself in a different home.
Yeah.
Okay.
Different ones adopted, different ones, us three.
Okay.
But I got the best home because it was the biggest farm, and there was one family of blacks there that had children my age, so I mostly stayed with them.
Mm-hmm.
So if they went in to eat, I went in to eat. If they got a spanking, I got a spanking.
Mm-hmm.
Then Mammy, the black woman, she knew I was an orphan, so she took care of me. She did. She talked to me just like she did her own. So I had a lot of people looking out for me, though. The Webbs were good to me. The Duckworths that lived across the street, his daughter married a Duckworth. They weren't too good to me. I mean, they resented it because they wanted their son to inherit everything. See, so they really wanted me out then. Oh, there was honey and cream while I was just a little bitty fella. But it didn't bother me. I wanted to leave anyway.
Right. And then you ended up all the way in Europe and made
Yeah.
yourself a new family from your
Yeah.
soldiers.
Yeah.
Yeah. You made a new family from your soldier friends.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And we had to be close because we worked together because we needed every one of them in a fight. You don't need to lose, and you need to hold on to what you got.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just crazy. War's just crazy. We don't need no war. God never sanctions war.
No.
He said, sit down and settle your dispute, you see. But after I come home, then I met Nita, Well, I had already known her. She was just a little beanpole. I was 8 years older than her. But when I come back, she had really filled out, and I'd kid her later, boy, you still filling out. Oh, she rant and rave. But once she got me in church, and I started teaching, after I got studying, then they wanted me to teach, because I had been a lot of places, see. And I got to liking it, so I started from there. And I taught the elderly in the church for 62 years. Taught all the men for 59. I lost all them. Then I got to teaching the ladies, and I've lost all of them but one now. The other one, there was two, and one fell, broke her hip, so she's in a nursing home now.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just me and Betty Boggs now.
So tell me your secret to a long, happy life and a good family. Tell me the secret to a long, happy life and a good family.
Yeah, a lot of secrets. First of all, you need to study the Bible. If you don't study the Bible, and if you don't walk with the Lord, you're going to walk with the world. There's only two ways to go, and only one name under heaven given unto man whereby they be saved. See, unless you believe in Christ and hit the cross, you don't believe. See, because He went to the cross to forgive us of our sins. You see, unintentional sin now. But when you defy Him, you're gonna have to stand in judgment with that. So the secret to life is leading a godly life to start with, because it's just like a bird in an Arctic flying to the Antarctic. He has to stop over, and in our life, this is just a stopover place until we reach the destination. See, real simple. Most people say, well, I've talked to people a lot of time. They say, well, I just won't have no fun if I'm a Christian. It's too restrictive. I said, well, I won't have any friends. I said, well, you don't have any anyway, any real friends. I said, you can be a millionaire, but when the money runs out, where did your friends go? See?
Yeah.
It's all about money. The love of money is the greatest of all evil. That's what separates. You take money out of the picture, there wouldn't be no fighting and stuff like that.
That's true.
It's all about money. Yet when we get there, the street's gonna be covered with gold. If you believe it.
Tell her,
Okay.
ask him what he ate all his life.
Well, yeah, what did you eat all your life?
What did I what?
Eat.
Eat. You mean till now?
Yeah.
Well, half of my living was off the stalk. The other half was out of the pot.
What does that mean?
It means Nita would say, you remind me of a cow when you're in the garden. I say, why do you say that? Every time I look up, you're grazing. The Lord says, don't call anything bad that I have made. Well, I don't. I'll eat most everything, but when it comes to possums and snakes, now I kind of draw back from that. Fish and chicken and beef and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't eat much meat. I eat mostly vegetables and fruits. Now, I go to Clayton, Georgia in the fall when the apples get ripe. I get me a bushel of apples, come back, and I start eating apples. And then when frost comes and those little bitty Yates apples come in, I go back and get me a half a bushel of them. So I eat an apple a day every day, and grapes. Ted keeps me in, Johnny keeps me in grapes. So I eat grapes and apples every day. And then of course I eat cranberries or things like that.
Sounds good.
Fruit
Yeah.
and vegetables.
Me too.
I eat a apple every morning for breakfast, and my oatmeal. I eat a bowl full of oatmeal. Nothing is healthier for you than oatmeal.
Okay.
You ever eat it?
A lot.
I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Put me a spoonful of honey in it, man. I'm all set.
Are you still cooking?
Hmm
Yeah.
I cook. That's about all I cook, though. I don't want, except sweet potatoes now. I'll bake me some sweet potatoes, put a little butter in them, and eat them.
That's yummy.
When I grew up on sweet potatoes, peanuts, popcorn, things like that. I did most of the planting, of the garden, so I always planted me plenty of peanuts and popcorn.
Mm.
One summer, I had this little bitty popcorn patch, wasn't much bigger than this room, down in a low place. And when I shucked it, I found some grains on it popped in the shuck. It was so hot. And nobody believed that. The old man told me one time, said, I had something happen to me I had never seen before. I said, what was that? He said, I've had some popcorn to pop in the shuck. I said, well, bless the Lord. Nobody believed me. But it was a hot summer.
Yep. Alrighty. I think that's about enough storytelling.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I guess you could say I was a little booger growing up.
Yeah.
I was all disturbed. I was a disturbed youngster, see. It wasn't until I went in the Army and was disciplined and come back and got started to church. And then everything settled down.
Thank goodness.
And I've been healthy all my life. I can only remember twice in my life when I was really sick. I had, as I told you, I had malaria fever twice in 1 year. And after that, I don't remember being sick. Eat like a pig, work like a horse.
Sounds good.
I don't eat too many sweets. Don't try to eat no salt if I can get by with it. And and grease. I don't eat grease. I eat oil now. I like oil, canola oil.
Yeah.
But I try not to eat grease. Not too many sweets. I eat some, and not too much salt.
And here you are, healthy as can be at 98.
And I'm healthy as a pig. I'm just like an old automobile. The parts are breaking down, but I still got my frame. Still got my teeth, all my teeth,
That's amazing.
my hair, my eyes, and my memory and stuff like that.
Yep. Absolutely.
Don't count me out yet.
I
not
think
gonna
you're going to
grow
outlive everybody.
I'm not going to grow like some of these people. I'm
No.
just going to be around a long time. Growing old is a disease sometimes.
Yeah.
Self-pity. I don't have no self-pity. I've been there, done that, come out all right, say, well, I want to change.
Yeah.
If you find something good, stick with it. I found the best.
Yep.
I'd like to get back in church. I think, though, if I get back, I'll be a pupil, not a teacher. I've taught 62 years. Let somebody else get started now. And the Lord has blessed me along the way. I got two here taking care of me. And as I said before, I've turned everything over to them. And I don't have a dollar to my name unless a Terry writes me a check or something.
You tell a story.
Alrighty. Well, I'm going to turn this thing off.